Last night, Cheryl Loggy made her status. Any moms out there know a good stroller for twins? Help! It got 10 likes and 8 comments. Geico also has a comment, Cheryl. While we don't know which stroller you should go with, we do know that in as little as 15 minutes, you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance just by switching to Geico. And with that money, you can buy the swankiest of rides for your tiny duo to cruise around in. Right on down to Potty Training Town. Hashtag twins, hashtag savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
With the holidays almost here, you don't have time to go to the post office. I keep telling you guys, the traffic, the parking, old ladies mailing mini fridges to their nieces. Look, use Stamps.com instead and don't go to the post office. With Stamps.com, you can avoid all the hassles of going to the post office during the busy holiday season. And everything you would do at the post office, you can do right from your desk. Buy and print official U.S. postage using your own computer and printer. Print postage for any letter or package the instant you need it. Then the mailman picks it up. It's so easy. It's so convenient. And that's why I use Stamps.com. You should use it too. Right now, get this special offer when you use my last name, Mohr. No risk trial plus $110 bonus offer. And that includes a digital scale and up to $55 free postage. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Mohr. That's Stamps.com. Enter MOHR.
Put your name on it. Just put your name on it. That's all I say. Be a man or a woman. Put your name on it.
Well, I'd like to hear about it, potheads.
How the fuck you gonna know how to be great if you don't study greatness? Look at the game tape.
Donuts.
If you want a battle, it's either that you will or you won't.
You know, you're not a bad-looking man, Mr. Gals.
But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
There's something wrong with us. Something very, very wrong with us.
Hey, man.
Four Stories podcast, number, I don't know what number we're in, mid-250s or so, Keith Morrison.
No kidding.
No kidding at all.
Well, and you're still alive.
Still alive.
Nobody's killed you yet.
No, but...
Somebody could.
Go on.
Maybe tonight. You never know.
You are, of course, the voice of Dateline, Fridays at 8 o'clock, my wife and mine's favorite show, and people listening are big fans of yours. I got you to call into my sports talk radio show. You were nice enough to do that.
Well, what do you mean nice enough? It was a pleasure.
You're the best.
It's an honor.
And you are good on Twitter as well. It's at...
Oh, yeah. It's at Keith underline... wait a minute. Dateline underline Keith. That's
underscore.
What it is. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Underscore?
Dateline underscore... At Dateline underscore Keith. And when I asked you to be on my radio show, which is sports, you actually tweeted back, "What do I know of sports save murder?"
Well, it is a kind of a sport, don't you think?
It was just great. Murder, well, in your business, it certainly seems to be a bit of a sport. People seem to strategize.
To a surprising degree. It never fails to amaze me how much planning goes into these. You wouldn't think it's supposed to be a crime of passion, but no, often not.
What amazes me when people do it for the money, the life insurance, and it's something inconsequential.
The light just went out in front of your garage.
Security light.
Yes, well, now. All right.
Everything's going to be narrated. I'm going to get my throat slit from behind.
Could be.
I have a theory that when you meet Keith Morrison, and I've actually tweeted this, if you ever meet Keith Morrison and shake his hand, you're granted everlasting life. It would be far too bizarre.
You said that?
I tweeted it maybe 2 years ago.
Wow.
Because if I shook your hand, it would be too bizarre for you to then be on Dateline saying Jay Mohr.
Right.
Yeah. You'd have to be excused from that particular one.
That's true.
And then I'd have the Mankiewicz guy doing it.
Well, he'd be a lot snarkier.
Josh Mankiewicz is more snark, and you're more sinister?
I don't know. I think I'm just warm and cuddly mostly.
Well, you do make it genteel, and I have said you are the Vince Scully of murder.
You did?
Yeah. This is a huge get for me, Keith. You have no idea. I've jumped through...
I thought it was the other way around.
Well, then it's the Mutual Admiration Society. We're both doing well in the deportment department. But your show, Dateline, Fridays at 8, and I know everybody listening to this are huge fans of the show, and you tweet, and Dateline has their own Twitter handle, and they tweet back.
They do.
But I think people don't realize that this is sort of like a gig you've settled into because you were a news anchor. You did things up in...
Yeah, well, right. That went on for a long time. You can do almost anything in television, including get coffee and take out the garbage. And
but I mean, you covered like real. I mean, you weren't always saying, you know, something was brewing at the Waffle House and it wasn't the coffee. You covered the Yom Kippur War, for crying out loud.
Yes, that's true. But I covered politics for a long time and talked to people with positions and authority and famous people. And they always, they always knew what they were going to say when they sat down. And they always had boundaries and barriers you couldn't go past. It was always a little kind of a dance you did with people. You never got to know what was going on inside. And that's what happens on this show. You sit down beside, I think I told you this before, you sit down in a room surrounded by lights and crews and producers sitting off to the side, and you talk to a stranger you just met. And that person is aware that this is going to go on television and be seen by millions of people. And you ask them questions more intimate and more personal and more private than a member of their own family would ask them after living with them their whole lives. And they'll answer. It's amazing. And they'll answer in a way that they often lie. Everybody lies all the time. But enough questions and answers, you sort of get to know the real person.
And your time with them, especially, people that have, I want to talk more about you talking to heads of state and such and covering wars, because that fascinates me as well. And coming from Saskatchewan, of all places.
Good God, you've done some research.
Well, it's a peripheral, I like to keep it light, and I don't want to let the facts get in the way of a good time here. Are you the most famous Saskatchewan?
No, God, no.
Who is?
No.
Who is?
Well, the thing I'm most proud of is that I went to the same elementary school as Gordie Howe.
Well, that's way out.
Yeah, and I played hockey on the hockey rink, the outdoor rink right beside the school where he started playing hockey is where I started playing.
So I'll put Gordie Howe way up.
Yeah.
He's most famous Saskatchewanian or Saskatchewan?
I don't know what the hell they call them. Saskatchewanian, I suppose.
Canadians.
That too, yes.
That as well.
Yes.
When you sit with people and your time with them is very limited, and I have a bunch, I do an entire, I'd say about 15 minutes of stand-up about Dateline.
Good God.
Well, it's fascinating because you have all the workings of the perfect, not jokes, but like routine. It's, first of all, everyone in the audience has seen it. Secondly, you point out things. My wife actually wrote the entire run, and I just perform it. When you get murdered, people suddenly come out of the woodwork and say the nicest things about you. Yes. You could have been the biggest bitch, hell on wheels, awful man, but they say two things that you've heard probably 100 times. The first thing they always say is, she lit up a room.
Yes, they all lit up rooms. You're right.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Keep smiling right now. It is the precursor to getting murdered. Your number one line on your resume, if your husband's going to put a happy face where your throat used to be, it's you must be a room lighter upper.
Good. A happy face where your throat. I like that. I like that line.
Ear to ear.
No, I'm just wondering if I could If I could use, is that your line?
Oh, no, carte blanche for you, my friend.
Thank you.
They always say she lit up a room.
Yeah.
And to which I call bullshit on because, Dalai Lama lights up a room alive.
Yeah, true.
Cindy Crawford.
True. Yeah.
You see her, you go, wow, she really lights up a room alive.
Yep.
But all of a sudden I'm supposed to believe that Patty, who's like a 6 tops, I saw her wedding video. She's got a crooked tooth and crunchy bangs. I don't think she really lit up a room. I think you're kind of embellishing just to be on television.
Just a bit, yeah.
And it goes back to your point, Keith Morrison. At Dateline_Keith. You're going to get a lot of tweets. You're going to like it.
Oh, well, good.
It's a passionate bunch.
Yeah.
That people will lie, and they'll say the strangest things. Even a man accused of murder, trial pending, and I think it goes back to the movie Requiem for a Dream, where she says, I just want to be on television. Like, people, just to be on television.
Yeah.
Even at the risk of incriminating themselves.
Well, there is a little of that, yeah. It's the oddest damn thing, actually. And occasionally, I mean, you know how it is, people lie to themselves more than to anybody else. So I remember at one time talking to a preacher who had decided during the course of his preaching career that a man should have more than one wife. Not that uncommon in the religion, in some religions. It was uncommon in his, but anyway, he married a junior wife, and things were fine for a couple of years, and then he tired of her, and so he sent the senior wife and the kids off for a weekend in Santa Barbara, and he took the junior wife out for a nice steak dinner, and then he took her home and he killed her. And he not only killed her, but then he cut her up into little bits with a saw. He did this in his bathtub so it wouldn't make too much of a mess. And then he put her into a couple of Tupperware containers and put those into the back of an Escalade he had rented, and he drove it out into the Arizona desert, and he buried it under some stones and went back into town and was preaching the next Sunday. So eventually, it took them a long time to catch this guy, but they eventually did, and they got the story out of him, and they convicted him, and he's in prison for life. So I asked him, I'm kind of interested in religion, and I asked him some questions based on his belief and, how he could still believe he was going to heaven after doing a thing like that. And he explained to me why that would be so, and said, but, the best part of it is she'll be there waiting for me, and we'll be together again. Wow. I said, you cut her into little bits. You think she's going to want to be with you again? Oh, yes, for sure. I love the things that people tell themselves more than anything.
And told you in a national audience, too.
Well, yes. Yeah.
There's got to be times where you're sitting across from a guy, and the moment you walk into the room, you get piss shivers up your spine, and you're in the presence of evil, and there's no...
But not that often.
Or has that ever happened?
Yes, it has.
Where you go, whoa. Like, before you even sit down, you go, whoa, there's a vibe in this room, bro.
Yeah.
Really?
But only once or twice, really.
Really?
Yeah.
How many have you done?
How many
Datelines have you done where you sat down with these men that have murdered their wives that lit up a room?
Not always just their wives, The men don't light up rooms, the men victims, as
never
often.
Say that. They always say, no one had anything bad to say about him. And I say on stage, well, by my math, there's one lady.
Yeah.
And I'm rounding up.
Yeah,
one lady that had so many bad things to say about him. Words weren't getting the point across. She needed the woods and time to fully express herself. So how many times have you sat down with
thousands?
Thousands?
Yeah.
And does any of that rub off on you? Do you ever go home and put your head on your pillow and you can't sleep because you realize, you have a strange job.
It's an odd
Morrison.
Job, but
you narrate murder.
I know. I should feel terrible about this.
You used to ask, Prime Minister Mulrooney questions, or you used to talk about President Nixon, please, over here in the corner.
Yeah.
And now you're just asking guys, why'd you put your wife into Tupperware bits and put her in the desert?
Yeah. far more interesting.
Did you audition for this job?
No. I think I got fired from some other job, and so, they...
You did. I know what job.
You know that already.
CBC. You called the Prime Minister. What's his name on camera?
Oh, no, that was the other network. So you were off by just a little bit.
It's still pretty damn impressive. I mean, who cares about Saskatchewan television? Come on.
It was meant with love and respect, but the guy was going to be on our show the next day. It was a morning show I was doing.
And it was the Prime Minister?
It was the Prime Minister, and he was retiring. And so, because everybody knew who he was, I just said, be sure to tune in tomorrow morning when old what's-his-name joins us for a kind of a goodbye chat.
On camera.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fireable offense by any means. I thought Canadians are a little more laid back than us.
Well, I would have thought, but there you are.
And did you have a meeting? Like, did they call you up to Human Resources and say, we're letting you go?
No, what happened was they don't tell you what they're doing. And so I was... Remember John Sununu?
Yeah, of course.
He was visiting in the country up there north of us.
He was a New Hampshire senator?
He was a New Hampshire guy, yeah. And he was in Toronto where we did our morning show, and he had a meeting there or something. So he agreed to an interview, and I went to see him in his hotel room. And I was in the middle of the interview when I was called aside and told that there's an important meeting at the office, our headquarters, and I should get over there as quickly as possible. I thought it was odd, but so I did, and walked into the room of the president of the network, and it just seemed sort of cold in the room. And speaking of feeling cold in somebody's presence, it felt cold. And he told me I was fired, but it's one of those getting escorted out. You can't go back to your office.
Really?
Yeah, it was
old school. Like, you got to get all your belongings off your desk.
Right. So then it appears in the newspaper and various magazines the next few days, and they've got their story out there. I went to see. I'm telling you tales out of school, but I couldn't say anything because it gets in the way of all potential legal proceedings. But anyway,
legally you couldn't say anything. That's I don't think you're speaking out of school. Legally, there's things going on. You probably signed an agreement saying I won't.
Why did I start telling you about that?
Because I asked you about
see what happens.
Saying good old what's his name.
Yeah, that's right.
Good old what's his name.
I'd sort of forgotten about that.
So there's been only 2 or 3 times you've said to me, Keith, that you've walked into a room and before you even sat across from the person, usually a man, you've went, whoa, it's a weird thing. And that's got to be a strange feeling because we're all innocent until proven guilty. But you walk into a room and realize there's something coming off of this human being. There's some energy that's making me uncomfortable, and I haven't even spoken to the person yet.
Right.
It kind of makes you like a believer in energies, maybe, and frequencies and whatnot. If they can make you creeped out before you meet them.
I don't know. Maybe we just do it to ourselves.
You could say no. You can disagree with me. It's fine.
Well, I think I am. I'm trying to politely disagree with you.
I know. Okay. Sorry. I just want you to disagree with me. Come across the table, smash me in the head with that bottle.
Yeah.
Keith, this is a good thing. On my website, jmohr.com, there's an Amazon banner, and with the holidays coming up, if you're going to shop at Amazon, don't go to Amazon.
Go to
jmohr.com, click the Amazon banner. All that money that I get, like a 1% kickback, it costs the listener nothing. It's regular. Amazon just wants to know they got there through my website. And
You're kidding about this, right?
No, right here. I'll show you. I'm going to read an email from a former Secret Service agent.
How did you get that deal?
Most podcasts actually have it.
No kidding.
So if you want to give Bill Burr money to just snort up his nose, or Adam Carolla more money for his drug habit, or I can put my kids through college. This goes direct deposit to a college fund for my 3-year-old son. No, hand to God, no joke. And I am a religious man, my friend.
Really?
I'm a St. Monican Catholic, right down the street here. So go to jmohr.com if you're shopping at Amazon, like my friend Jason Russell, who writes, Keith, AJ, I ordered some heart rate monitors on Amazon by clicking through jmohr.com, the banner on your site. I didn't order them for the normal reason you would think. I'm a former U.S. Secret Service agent, and I have a business training school and child cares how to respond to critical incidents. These monitors will allow me to demonstrate to them the effect that high heart rates have on functioning during critical incidents. You just had science happen in your face, he writes.
Wow.
And then he continues.
So you're saving the world and making money at the same time?
Well, my son's college. I won't. If my sons decide not to go to college, I will become a thousandaire. Anyway, I enjoy your podcast, and I like the show Gary Unmarried. Apparently, I must have been the only one that liked it. Check out my website while you're bored or on a plane with Wi-Fi. Don't hesitate to hype up my business on your podcast. Happy to come train schools anywhere in the country. Keep up the good work. Jason Russell, President and CEO. I'll give you the plug, bro. SecureEd.com. Secure Environment Consultant. SecureEd.com. So, Jason Russell, there you have it. You just got to... Hey,
how many people have done this? Who've gone through you and get down?
Oh, hundreds a week. Yeah, wow. It's good. And it doesn't... you're going there anyway. You go to my website.
The thing of you is good old what's-his-name, and we'll...
Good old what's-his-name.
Get whatever we want if we look him up.
It's amazing. Of all the times you sat in a room with hinky people, the one time it was your own professional murder.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one time you vibed it out.
That's true. Yeah.
You've sat across thousands of men that it's usually the wife, I would say, on the show. 70%.
Well, often.
You could have just said yes.
No, because here. Because we want people to think maybe it could be somebody else.
Oh, red herring. Here's the thing, like 30% of the time the guy murders his wife. I go the other way with it.
Sometimes the wife murders the husband.
Yeah, and it's always a man of power, I've noticed. It's always a sheriff or a judge, and it's always his own weapon. And the wife, you know what disturbs me, Keith Morrison?
What does? What
when they use your 911 call against you in court. That scares the shit out of me.
Now, why does that disturb you?
Because they either say you're too crazy and you're acting, or you're not showing enough emotion.
Yeah.
Because if I walk upstairs and my wife is no longer with us, first thing I'm getting out is my address. This is in case anything else happens. I get the address out, and I want to give. I would assume this is how I would behave. Of course, I would be an hysteric. But then they play it in court and go,
you don't
sounds kind of
hysterical, though. No, just the right amount of hysterical.
See,
there's a whole system, really.
Yeah?
Yeah, and you see the people who are trying to use the system to get away with it, and sometimes they succeed.
The 911 call people.
Well, that's just one element. It's one chapter of the story to tell.
But you don't think that's unfair to use against somebody in court, their emotional state at the time they made a 911 call?
I think it's totally unfair, but it's...
Oh, okay.
Yes. Part of the way things work.
Let me ask you this. I know you're not a lawyer. I know you're not a policeman or a judge, but you deal with these the nefarious characters.
Uh-huh.
I never understood why, if you agree to a lie detector test and they can't use it in court. I know it just seems odd that the police would say, well, he turned on the lie detector. Well, even if I agree to it and fail, you can't use it against me in court.
No.
Is it admissible?
It's a tool to scare people into confessing, mostly.
If I gave you a lie detector test, and do you think you have learned enough along your travels with murderers that you could actually pass it? Could you look me in the eye?
No, I couldn't pass it.
You don't think so?
No.
I think I could.
You probably could.
Because the first question...
You look sort of like a sociopath, so maybe...
Well, John Ronson's The Psychopath Test is a great collection of essays about, what makes a psychopath, and I realized, well, entertainment, show business, egomaniac, addiction, depression, swinging mania, all of it.
Yeah.
But I use my powers for good. I walk in the light, my friend. I light up a room.
I'm so excited about that Amazon thing. I can barely speak.
Well, next time you shop on Amazon, you should go to jmohr.com. And
I'll tell my wife,
Yeah, you can see clips of my stand-up, and you can see where I'm performing in a town near you. Next time I'm in Irvine, you better be there, my friend. I will text you and let you know. I mean, I don't think you're going to go January 24th to the Turning Stone Casino in Verona, New York. That's probably a long hustle for you, right?
Well, no, I go there all the time.
All right. Well, we'll go together.
Oh, good idea.
On the Dateline jet.
Yeah. The Dateline jet, yeah.
And just hope the pilots don't get murdered. I think I could pass a lie detector test because I have my birth name is... The first question they always ask you is your name Keith Morrison?
Yes, all right.
So I'll ask you, is your name Keith Morrison?
I believe it is.
Yeah. Well, you would ask yes or no, please. Is your name Keith Morrison?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So you pass. But if you ask me the same question...
Is your name Jay Mohr?
Yes, but already in my head, I was born John Mohr, and I changed it. So already there's a hiccup. I'm out of the gate being elusive.
I saw the little blink, by the way.
The little blink?
Yeah.
I thought I was crying, actually. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
When you were so you don't audition to become the voice of these shows. It's just sort of something you fell into. Like you.
Well, no. Here's what happened.
You got lucky because Chris Hansen fell into like child molesters. You fell into. Right. I think you got the easier gig.
I got the better one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did. That's
a bet. One have a sheet right over there.
Yeah.
So how do you get this gig? It's fascinating to me.
Well, what happened was it was just like any other magazine show, current affairs kind of show. And I mean, I used to like doing stories about animals. I did a story about Free Willy. I did 3 stories about Free Willy.
All right.
We followed him, from the time he was in the Mexican pool up through the very sad last part of his life. Anyway, we did that.
Hold on. What do you mean anyway? This is like the most interesting thing about you that I've learned to date. I thought I was fascinated by you, but Keith Morrison, the voice of Dateline, did 3 separate stories on
Free Willy,
on a killer whale named Free Willy that they made a beautiful, heartfelt movie about. Yeah. Who were you working for? When? What is
Well,
this?
it was a Dateline story. It was several Dateline stories.
About a whale.
Yeah. But we did that sort of thing.
That's biting journalism, Keith.
Absolutely.
You're sitting with John Sununu in a hotel room, and then you go, I got to get back to the tank down there and talk to a whale.
Way more interesting than politicians.
Can you tell if they're lying when you speak? They don't. I guess they never lie.
Whales hardly ever lie.
Never.
No.
I've learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with wolves. They're the same thing.
Wolves don't lie.
Yeah. Your dog probably doesn't lie.
No, she lies. She'll tell me she hasn't eaten. That's why she weighs all of 3 pounds. So you're doing these Free Willy,
right?
And that's what you enjoyed.
Yes, but then they realized that murder mysteries are really interesting, and people like to watch them. So not to make it sound too commercial, but that's what people are interested in. So who are we to tell them we're not going to do it? And once we started, I sort of was dragged into it a little bit, but I realized,
how?
Well, told that's what we will do.
As an employee of NBC?
That's right.
Because you were a news anchor.
Oh, yes.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to loosen up a little. I feel like you're I feel like you're measuring your answers very carefully, like the politicians.
I am?
Yeah. Don't you get that, Corey? A little vibe? A little bit.
Really? You too?
You said, I don't want to speak out of school here, and you basically...
And then spoke out of school.
No, the message was I couldn't talk about it for legal reasons.
Well,
that's not speaking out of school. That's what happened.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
So, Jesus Christ, Morrison.
All right.
So you're working for NBC. How do you go from reading a teleprompter about the news to being, as you said, dragged into murder mysteries?
Well, the teleprompter about the news, if you want to, I was working at the CBC in Canada before that, covering politics, doing political documentaries, and then going off, as you said, to the Yom Kippur War in the Middle East and various other things like that. Southeast Asia. So I was a reporter doing mostly long-form stuff for a long time. And then I got a call from KNBC in Los Angeles one day out of the blue, and they asked if I wanted to go and work there. And I thought, what an interesting thing that would be to do for a year or so, for somebody who's getting sort of tired of doing the same thing. And... that's a funny way to put it. It wasn't really tired. I don't know what. Wanted to leave the CBC for a little while.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up doing that.
And how long did you do it for?
Choked to death. Yeah, nice, huh? How long did I do that? I did that from 86 through 92, so about 6 years.
And you had like a 1 year thing in your head of like, oh, I'll just do this for a little bit, and turned out you were wildly successful, and you were damn good at it.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well, you hung around. They wouldn't keep you at the desk if there was somebody waiting to take your spot named Mohammed Sanchez.
Or whatever.
A woman named Mohammed Sanchez. Yeah. You're out.
I'd hire her in an instant.
I would as well.
Yeah.
The Yom Kippur War. Were you you were there?
Yes. It was.
I never understood.
That was a long time ago.
Why it makes it more news? Like if something breaks out and Syria or the Gaza Strip, you get Keith Morrison on the phone and say, "Hey, we need you to get on a jet right away. We need you on the ground in the Golan Heights to cover this." Because I always fear for the reporters' safety, and I always think, well, why not just put a map of Israel behind the guy and have him stand next to the desk?
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Why do people have to go to Liberia?
I think they're
risk
crazy.
Death?
Yeah, they're nuts. That's why they're crazy.
And when you were there,
these people who do that are crazy. I went there. I did that for 5 minutes. That's enough for me.
Yeah, but in those 5 minutes, your life was actually in danger. It was
no, but I mean,
there was 11
really.
Participants for crying out loud. It wasn't really a tidy affair.
Yeah, it wasn't. But you don't get all that close to the bombs going on.
You go to the Four Seasons and watch it on TV with your feet up.
Well, you go back there every night. Yeah.
Room service. I'd like a gin and tonic and a plate of chips. I want to watch myself.
Yeah. In Vietnam, the reporters would get in the back seat of not all of them, but a lot of them. You get in the back seat of a chauffeur-driven Mercedes, and they get driven out to the front where these poor slobs are lying around in the swamps trying to pick off whoever they can, spend the day there, and then go back to the hotel at night, where they might have a fairly good social life.
So it's another back in the day, even a media illusion.
Yeah. Well,
the manipulation of the message. This guy's on the ground. We have a guy there.
There was some of that going on.
Our news team is so incredible. He's on the ground, boots on the ground, dirt under the nails.
Right.
And then by the time you're watching it in Southern California, he's at a Four Seasons with a young Thai boy. My words, not yours.
Your words, not mine. Yeah.
So you do the Dateline shows, which it is actually my favorite show, and we watch all of them.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the reason you're
Friday
here.
at 8, 7 Central. Huh?
Friday at 8, 7 Central, Mountain, and
That's right.
you're on your own. The rest of it. I always wondered why they always go, and you probably had to say it your whole life, like 8 o'clock, 7 Central. They never go and that's 8 Mountain, just so you know, we switch back. Only the Central Time Zone gets their special disclaimer for time.
I know.
It's never seemed right to going, when is it on for me?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. But why would they watch at 7? 7 seems too early for Dateline.
It is too early. It's too early for anything. I'm giving kid a bath at 7 o'clock. Not even mine.
Right.
Just kids in the neighborhood. I round them up and I give them all baths.
Your little dog is licking my hand.
She likes you. That's little Mabel. She's on the...
Mabel is very cute.
She's a good little girl. Mm-hmm. She's a nice pup. Do you have any dogs, Keith?
I have a dog, yes.
What kind of dog do you have?
It's a golden doodle. Quite a large dog, actually.
Golden doodles are big. What's your dog's name? Let's make him famous.
His name is Jasper.
Jasper,
yes. Jasper's a good dog. He's kind of like a puppy, even though he's old.
One of those big dogs that think they're lap dogs?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Always wants to cuddle up to you.
Yeah, kind of like that.
When you do they film most of the Datelines? You have to go to these places where the thing happened.
Well, yes.
I mean, obviously, because if the person's incarcerated, you have to go see them.
You bet.
So you are actually, Keith, not that guy manipulating the media that I stated earlier. You actually have to go to a jail and sit across from a guy, and you can. The reveal is they only shoot the guy from the neck up to hide the prison jumpsuit.
Well, that's right. Yeah. In cases where that person is actually guilty, sometimes, of course, they're not. But
has there been a case? And you said thousands, but I would guess if I had your job, there'd be a couple cases that are a little hard to shake off.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Any in particular come into mind?
Oh, well, lots of them, actually. Sure, lots of them are.
As long as you're specific, that's fine.
Yeah, I know you want to specify. But I don't know.
No, I don't know. Maybe, maybe
it's always the last one, whatever it was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They all, do you think...
It's always the one you're working on.
Does it take a toll on you?
No, it's an energizing thing. It's wonderful.
I know, but there's dead people involved and sinister things and mysterious noises. And
everybody dies at one time or another.
And that doesn't. You're able to just close the door behind you and go, "That's just my day at the office." And I mean, that fascinates me.
No, I mean, you really you feel for the people involved a lot. I mean, I'm telling you, I have sat across from somebody I've just met and talk about their dead husband or wife or something, and you find yourself weeping along with them. Of course, it's. But the thing, here's the deal of it. People let you inside, and that's incredibly honoring. I mean, you feel as if you're in church in a way. Somebody's let you into their soul, and so you go home at night. Yeah, you think about it a lot, but it's not depressing. It's I can't believe that person was so open enough to let me inside and let me feel what they felt, and I'm honored. Yeah.
There must be instances where right before you ask a question, and maybe it's been prepared 48 hours or 14 days in advance, you think to yourself when you're in front of the person in that moment, this is way over the line. This is really a personal question, but I have to ask, even the question, did you kill your wife? Did you kill your husband? Sort of has to be asked every single episode.
Well, it does, but it doesn't. Because, of course, the people who actually did do the killing or are suspected of it are not going to tell you. I mean, that's one thing they'll lie about. That's a question that you're always supposed to ask it, and I never do. And part of the reason
Mankiewicz always does.
Well, he does everything right. That Mankiewicz. I used to cover politics, and Pierre Trudeau was the Prime Minister of Canada during part of that time, and he did not like the press, and they did not like him.
Well, his wife may or may not have been catting around with the Rolling Stones. He had his hands full.
What do you mean may or may not have been?
Why, she was.
Anyway.
I mean, a couple photographs,
Yeah.
It's multiple stones is what impressed me, Mrs. Trudeau.
Mm-hmm. So he found it amusing when reporters would ask a question that they knew they were going to get a no answer or simply no answer to. And so he had this little shtick he would do where if somebody would ask one of those questions, instead of saying, denying it or saying, no, my government is not going to do that or this or that or the other, he'd say, yes, Keith, I'm so glad you asked. I've been denying that for years. But now that you asked me that question, I'm going to tell you the truth. So it stuck with me.
It kind of makes him like a media darling, I would think. You would look forward to it, just hoping he would be the one to lay that on you in particular. Quick commercials coming right back. I got really good questions for Keith Morrison.
I hope so.
Keith, when I watch Dateline with my wife every single Friday night at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock
Thank
Central.
God for you, really.
I'm not, I mean, I don't know if you realize, I don't know if you're this humble a guy. I've known you, 40 minutes?
At least.
But you do seem, I don't know if you fully understand how famously popular and how...
Get out of here.
No. Your show is, people are obsessed. When I'm on stage and I go, and then there's a hole on the TiVo, just Dateline, murder, mystery show, the crowd just starts like it's their home too.
Well,
are you really unaware of this? I mean, they don't bring you...
Look, I'm glad. I don't believe it, but I'm glad,
You really don't believe it?
Well,
you think I'm lying? I mean, I go around the country
I
tell jokes for money, and if they don't laugh, I'd be a fool to keep banging my head against the same wall.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I guess so.
When I drive, I want excitement behind the wheel. That's why I choose Shell V-Power Premium Gasoline, and I experience a drive that comes alive. Shell V-Power removes an average of 60% of performance-robbing gunk on intake valves left by low-quality premium gasolines. Hey, man, I drive a lot for a living. I can't have gunk in my engine. That's why I got that Shell V-Power Premium, baby. Starts with your very first tank. Now you can save big on Shell fuels. Just sign up free for the Fuel Rewards Network program and receive at least 3 cents per gallon instantly on every single fill-up. For a full offer and details, visit fuelrewards.com.
This morning, Sandra Sneed wrote a joyful status. This miss is a soon-to-be Mrs. Over 300 friends liked her engagement post, and it got 76 comments. Sandra, you're one popular gal. Geico also has a comment on your status. Did you know you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance in just 15 minutes by switching to Geico? Just the way we're trying to help cushion a nice little nest egg for the future misses. Hashtag getting hitched. Hashtag savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
There's something for everybody at Teleflora.com when you send festive flowers from Teleflora's exclusive homemade for the holidays collection. For the cook in your life, there's Teleflora's Holidays centerpiece. The vase doubles as a festive serving bowl. We can all use that. For your favorite baker, send Teleflora's gingerbread cookie jar bouquet, a perfect way to house holiday cookies. And for the merrymaker, Teleflora's Merry Mug Bouquet has a mug with matching spoon, perfect for cocoa. For you, there's $15 off when you use the coupon code MOHR, M-O-H-R, at teleflora.com. T-E-L-E, Flora, F-L-O-R-A, teleflora.com. Be sure and enter Teleflora's Homemade for the Holiday Sweepstakes to win a trip to New York City and meet the cake boss, Buddy Velastro, or hundreds of other great prizes. Beautiful, fresh holiday bouquets, always hand-arranged, always hand-delivered. There's something for everybody now at teleflora.com. Coupon code MOHR.
I really get the vibe that you're just not really dialed into how famous and, well, what's the word? How popular this show, obsessive. I mean, Dateline were brilliant when they opened up their own Twitter account and asked listeners.
Yeah. Well, that was good.
Tweet us who you think did it, and during the show it'll say, "Do you believe what he said?" and stuff like that.
There's a woman who is in charge of that sort of thing at Dateline, who does an awful lot of that kind of stuff. Who is a very, very interesting woman who has a bubble around her. She'll hate me for saying this, of course, but she's just one of the most wonderful people you ever meet, as long as you stay at least 2 or 3 feet away from her.
She doesn't like personal space being intruded upon.
Personal space is very important. So I like to intrude on it as often as I possibly can.
You get real close after you eat onions and just say words. As Bill Cosby would say, words with a lot of H's in them. Hi, I'm Harold.
That's right.
People that eat onions always have H's in their sentences.
Can I spit on your shoulder?
Sure.
Yeah.
So she's in charge of the social media at Dateline?
Well, she does
a great job.
Lot of it, yes.
Well, God bless her.
Oh, yeah.
Do you write your own copy?
Yes.
That's insane.
What? Well, here's the way it works.
Can I tell you why it's insane?
Why?
Because not only do you have to write linearly from where we start, where we're going, who got killed, who was called, who we thought it might be, these are the other suspects, then back to the police, then we actually have somebody, and then we realize that this person, now we're going to interview the person, they give them a chance to speak for themselves. That's just the linear writing, which would take days to accomplish. But you always have like the most sinister-y sort of way of going about texturing and layering the copy in a Tony suburb where nobody locked their doors. Something was brewing at the local Waffle House, and it wasn't the golf.
It's very kind of you. But I work with some really, really talented people who, without whose efforts I would be, it would take like 10 times longer to get anything done.
So there's help. So there's other, okay.
That's more than help. I mean, I like to think I help them a little bit once in a while, but mostly it's...
But you got to deliver it, so I have to think it has to be written in your voice.
Well, this is it, yeah. But I do the writing in my voice. It's a collaboration. I'm not...
It's a lot of writing. I mean, if you write like a sitcom, it's, you have a cold open, act one, it's there's a misunderstanding, the wife thought he said this and that, then you go to a commercial, and then there's a B story. But you guys have to, like, bring the entire national television audience, I'm sure international, for Dateline on Friday nights at 8 o'clock, 7 Central. And you have to bring millions of people.
It's at 8 o'clock. Did you know that?
I did, on Friday nights. You have to bring millions of people up to speed, and there's a lot of moving parts. There's sheriffs, there's DAs, there's prosecutors, there's defense attorneys. One guy gets fired, they bring new people in, and you have to keep kind of resetting, and there's a lot of exposition to write. And that's
a lot of resetting,
It's very difficult, in my experiences, to pull off. yourself, and you guys seem to I'm from New Jersey. You guys seem to pull it off very quickly and deftly, and it's really an incredible team.
Well, yes, they're really good at it, and I'm along for the ride. Frankly, I'm the visiting pastor. All these people do the hard work, and I just sort of go and visit them. Yeah.
Which politician did you ever get to interview or ask questions of American presidents, sitting American presidents?
I got to cover them, but it's really hard to ask questions of them. Of course, you have to be, the star in whatever organization you're in to be given the honor to ask the question.
And it seems like once you're in that room in the West Wing, you never really get back. Like Sam Donaldson was in there until he grew Spock ears. They never really, and like Matt, Albright. Like there's never like a 22-year-old guy like, hey, President Obama, so-and-so, Cornell University, quick question.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. Yeah.
So you'd be the guy outside the White House.
I'd be the one standing on the fringe saying,
This is what I heard just happened in there.
Yeah, that pretty much, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Who's a politician that you sat across from that blew you away with their smarts and you thought, if only it wasn't for the system in place, this person might actually change the entire country?
Gorbachev.
Yeah.
Unbelievable guy. And smart as a whip, and exactly the person who I think could have made the world a lot better place, but a couple of missteps. And
well, the Politburo too never goes away, don't they? Do in your experiences a guy like with Glasnost and a guy like Gorbachev who has these great reform ideas? Isn't you? Please educate me on this. Isn't the Politburo in Russia still in place to sort of rein him back in? It's kind of like the mob looking over your shoulder in the neighborhood.
Well, maybe more these days with the one they've got. But then, of course, he was kind of superseded by events and got ousted. Yeah. But when he was. When he got Glasnost and when he figured out he was going to ride this tiger and try to make it all the way through, it was an amazing piece of work. And then afterwards, when he consented to do interviews with reporters around the world, me included, and he talked about that time. It was remarkable how perceptive he was, not only about what was going on in his country, but around the world. And relations with other countries. It was just really interesting.
Yeah,
he actually gave more than most do, and maybe it was because he was out of office by then. I don't know.
But I think that's also incongruous to where he came from too. To come from the Soviet Union, be the most forthcoming guy.
Right.
It's maybe that's why it blew you away so much. Because when you said Gorbachev, I went, "Oh, that makes sense," and I went, "No, not really. I mean, he came from so he. You think he really could have pulled it all together?"
Well, yeah, he was just quite a guy.
Is there any hope in politics? Is there ever going to be a guy that can crack through the two-party system here in the States and really do anything?
Sure looks stuck, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh. My father-in-law asked me this question. He has a job I'll tell you about off mic because I've been instructed by people. Don't say that anymore publicly, please.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that? What did you say that got you involved?
Well, he's a rocket scientist.
There you are.
But there's things that go along with that job that
I see.
I was told from an anonymous email, please stop saying that.
Doesn't murder anybody, does he?
No.
No, okay, fine. Yeah.
I'm making him sound like a spy or something, but he's not. He's a brilliant man. He's a rocket scientist. And he asked me, what do you think would happen if Congress just didn't go to work for one calendar year? What would change? And I thought about it, and I realized absolutely nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Nothing would change.
Nothing.
If no senator, no congressman, if it was just an empty hall, and when they opened the doors, fucking bats flew out.
Yeah.
You would be exactly where you are today.
Exactly. Maybe better.
Yeah. But it is like this batshit crazy two bats, two sentences.
Nuts.
I'm on fire with the bat references.
Well, they're good references.
Yeah. It's like this crazy, like, built when it's set up, the three-party, the three branches of government. In theory, it's going back. I would love to talk politics with you.
Well,
the reason.
Fine. I'll not say anything about it, but I'd like to listen.
Well, the reason socialism will never work is because there's human beings involved. That old expression. And the reason the three branches of government won't work is because, again, human beings. Everything on paper seems fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
But these guys just seem.
It's depressing.
You were almost going to say a bitch. You were almost going to swear.
I was going to, yeah. I do swear occasionally, but microphones in your face, you just...
Well, in your line of work, I would hate for you to be like, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Right.
Shithole. Like you don't need swears rattling around in your frontal lobe in your line of work.
No, it's not a good thing. And yet you're able to do this all the time.
Yeah, I have the on-off switch. When you're a comic, you do these corporate gigs.
Uh-huh.
Jay Leno said to me on this podcast, if you have an hour of material, you have 6 minutes for corporate. Because you have to be G-rated.
Of course.
It's very, very wealthy, fancy group of people. So I always have to do G-rated shows for these corporations. Then you dive back into the comedy club.
I'd sure like to hear some of that non-G-rated.
Non-G-rated?
Yeah.
Well, 15 minutes of it is about your show.
And it's non-G-rated.
Well, there's people getting murdered, and I swear a lot in my everyday life.
Do you?
Well, really, you sound surprised. Being from the East Coast, it's very fuck is.
Why would that make a
fuck
difference?
is more of a comma.
I suppose it is.
You say Keith, fucking. That's where the comma would go.
Course, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. True.
But yeah, no. Next time I'm down in Irvine or Brea, if you're down your neck of the. I don't want to give away your secret. You live in the side of a volcano, as we all know.
That's true.
Like a Bond villain.
Inside the volcano.
Inside.
Yeah.
Have you ever been offered acting roles, Keith Morrison?
Sort of, but I don't think I'd do that.
What do you mean, sort of? Everything's tabled and couched. You're so.
Yeah.
What do you mean, sort of?
Well, just a little bit. Walk on things, Yeah, sure.
Like on. You were on Seinfeld.
Well,
right?
there was that, but
you said
playing
Kramer
a reporter
was a serial killer.
That was quite a lot of fun, and I was in between contracts one time, and I was at lunch. And I was sort of pissed because they weren't. I'm getting there. I'm starting to move toward that.
Let it fly, sister. Let it fly,
anyway,
sister.
I was sort of pissed that they hadn't offered me the next deal yet. I was just getting frustrated.
It's the NBC way, from my Saturday Night Live experience.
Well, that could be so.
Let them wait.
Anyway, the phone rings, and it's Seinfeld. Saying, do you want to do a little shtick on the show? We're taping today, and there's a bit for a reporter, and I wondered whether you might like to do it. Well, yes. So I went down to the studio on my lunch hour. I was there for maybe 20 minutes.
Wait, that's it?
Yeah, and Seinfeld was there, and he was very gracious, and the rest of them weren't, but he was there, and he asked me if I wanted a sandwich on the way out, and no, I wanted to get back to work. But that was that. Forgot all about it. I've had a check from them every month for the last, how long? It's almost 30 years now.
It's amazing when those residual checks keep coming. Eventually, they get down to literally 6 cents.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Like they're accounting. It's like,
But they still arrive. It's wonderful.
It's like, I'm going to be okay. I know you guys have to keep your books in order, but maybe round down, keep the 6 cents, put it in your pocket, because I opened an envelope all excited, and it said 00.06.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're going to move the zeros and the decimal point around, I could get fired up over it.
Yeah.
But
I get excited, though, when the check comes, even if it's
the 6 cents.
Yeah. Which it usually is.
So you we were talking about energies and stuff, and you seem to my vibe off of you when I brought up reading people's energies and frequencies. You seem to be a little my interpretation of you, of what I'm reading from you. You seem to be a little more cut and dry, black and white. Maybe not so much into the. Yeah. Do you think everything happens for a reason?
No.
Do you believe in an afterlife?
Oh, come on. Why do you ask questions like that?
This is what
You're trying to pin me down.
This is what I would ask my friends.
If I say that I don't believe in an afterlife...
Then you'd be like many, many, many Americans.
Yes, well, in fact, I don't.
How about you're just a happy agnostic? I don't know if there's an afterlife.
That's pretty much.
You don't have to put your foot down and say there is not one.
Well, I wouldn't know now, would I?
Well, if anybody would know, it would be you. All you do is talk to people that just murdered people. What are you talking about? You're right next to the doorman.
Who've been murdered, I don't get to talk to them.
You're next to the man who's next to the man.
Yeah.
Who used to be the man.
Who used to be the man. Yeah. I don't think so. I just don't think so. And it's okay.
My grandfather didn't think so either. And when I interviewed him...
Is he dead?
Yeah, a while. My hero, Maurice Ferguson. And the kindest man I ever met. And I asked him if he believed in an afterlife. And he said, no. God, Mabel, stop. I said, sorry, I'm yelling at my dog.
Did you just kick your dog?
No, I waved her away.
Okay.
And he said, you step on a bug, it's over. There's no, you can tell me there's a bunch of ants and stuff and all that. And it surprised me. His answer. Yeah, you want Mabel to snap. She makes like pig noises. You want her to do it into the mic. You're smart.
I do.
All right, so Gorbachev blew your mind.
Yeah, but I don't think there's an afterlife in spite of that.
Well, that's fine. I don't think Gorbachev and afterlife are really... I bet he right now wishes there was an afterlife because he's no longer with us. No comment. All right. I'll fill in the pauses.
Fine.
It's what I do for a living.
Yeah, fine. You've got a lot of those tonight. Yeah.
Politician you've interviewed that you thought, wow, this guy's like an actual crazy person.
Oh, boy. Now then, see, I have to name a name, right?
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Well, because some of them are still around and they get mad at you. You know, I mean, if you express an opinion,
how about somebody
you're not supposed to express opinions because it means you're
real nut. When I spoke to him,
yeah, that's true. I have been around about that.
I was on Vancouver local news, and Polk came through town after they finished the railroad. Yeah. Nobody that's not around anymore that you can.
Well, you know, I mean, come on. If you want to get to a position of some authority, it's unusual to be a complete nut job. Although it does happen in America from time to time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
You're sitting down with men that have been accused, and I'm generalizing, of course.
Right.
There has to be a mechanism in your head where you realize, oh, that's the sentence, he did it. Or is it like, is it something in your head that you have to erase and have complete objectivity start to finish and wait till you go home?
You know, I'm really bad at telling when people are lying.
I think the listeners watch TV and go, oh my God, he's lying.
Yeah, they do. But I don't see it. I'll believe somebody. They tell me a story. I think, oh, really? I just believe it, you know, a lot of the time. I mean, sometimes it's just too obvious.
There has to be.
But so then, yeah, afterwards, you sit and you think about it for a bit. And do
you ever regret the way you went about it in hindsight? Like
all the time.
Like I was way too nice to that guy. He's a cold-blooded murderer.
Right.
And
I used to worry about that a lot. But actually, being nice to cold-blooded murderers is a good strategy.
You feed into their psychopath.
Yeah.
Brain. That's very smart.
It doesn't really matter after the fact when you put a story together. You don't have to sort of jump down somebody's throat or accuse them of something or be the journalist who's going to find truth. You just have to let them tell their story and then compare it to the facts.
It's very interesting you say that. So, because there used to be a guy, it was a black guy that did it, a light-skinned black young guy, and I forget his name, but he impressed my wife and I because he was almost argumentative, like, oh, come on, you couldn't possibly. Do you know who I'm talking about? I forget his name. He had the job. He used to interview. It was Mankiewicz, yourself.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fine.
You don't know who I'm talking about?
No. Not a clue.
But he's gone. I don't see him anymore.
Okay, fine.
Oh, boy.
No, I don't know who you're talking about. I really don't. Not a clue.
He was like a young brother, and he used to really go like, you can't possibly believe that anybody would think. But so you go in, and you're completely objective, and when you sit across from somebody, the fact that the guy has shackles around his feet, and they had to handcuff him to a chair to talk to you, that doesn't taint your vision of the fact that maybe he's got a swastika tattooed to his eye.
Just spilled.
Don't worry about it.
What do you mean don't worry about it? That's a nice table.
It's fine, Keith. We've had degenerates in here. We've had lead singers. We've had Bootsy Collins farted in this room. Don't worry about it.
Really? What was that like?
Oh, he brought the bass.
Whoa.
It's a Bootsy Collins one.
Yeah.
So you don't sit across from somebody, and I find
no. Here's what happens. I sit across from somebody who's got shackles on, and who I know is a murderer, a multi-murderer even, and I tend to want to. I can't help it. I sort of want to think that maybe that person was misunderstood or something, and you kind of.
But misunderstood, but still having committed the murders.
Oh, of course, yes.
Or misunderstood and not guilty.
Well, it depends. I want to try to believe people. If they tell me they're not guilty, even if I know they are, I want to try to live in their story as much as I can. Not, fight against it and tell them that they're full of shit all the time, but just to try to live in their experience of it. I know they're lying. It doesn't matter. But
no, but I mean, that speaks to your days of being a very good reporter. You got to be in the moment and be in that person's.
Yeah, you want to understand what they're saying so you can express what they say. But then the truth is something different.
In a way, Keith, it sounds like acting. Not acting like you're putting on a show, but you have to be present and you have to be a very good listener.
Is being a good listener.
To be completely present, to be fully engaged with that person, to make it where me as a viewer watching you sitting across from this person. That's why I'm completely enthralled by the discussion.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
How many times have you sat across? Look, I realize I've asked you 6 questions where there's a numerical answer, and it's
and I never give you one.
No, you said thousands and one or
which
two.
Is probably a lie, by the way.
I knew it was a lie.
Yeah, but you just kept repeating it.
You're Saskatchewan guys. You never,
no,
they're hard to trust. Gordie Howe used to lie all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Has there been if I had your job? Okay. There would have to be somebody I spoke to that I knew didn't do it. There's been episodes. There was that kid, I think it was in Costa Rica, or somewhere in Central America. He was accused of killing his
Nicaragua.
Girl, Nicaragua. And he was in Nicaraguan jail. The judge threw everything out. The cell phone towers proved that he wasn't even where he was.
Yeah.
His alibi was beyond airtight, and the judge just said, I don't want to hear it. And the whole show the show actually concluded, there was no ambiguity. It was this poor guy stuck in this Nicaraguan jail.
Yeah.
So you left there knowing that there's an innocent man in this horrible...
but that happens here all the time. All the time is maybe a stretch, but a lot.
Often.
More than it should.
Right. So do you then feel like, do you contact Amnesty? Like, what can you do? Or I mean, how do you...
You put it on television.
But how do you personally leave that behind you?
Well, I don't. That's now you hit on the one I can't leave behind me, because there are around this country... The guy in the Nicaraguan jail got out. He's at home, thank God. But there are, in this country right now... hundreds of people, most of them men, but some women too, who are in prison for life, convicted of murder, who didn't do it. And I know they didn't do it, and they know they didn't do it, and many of the authorities know they didn't do it. But the system is so... I was going to use the word rigged. That's the wrong word. But the system is structured in such a way that it's practically impossible to get them out, to make justice realize that they've got an innocent person in there who needs to be released. And prosecutors will fight back against those things tooth and claw, many of them.
Makes them look like they're incompetent.
Well, and then they worry that maybe they're going to get sued. And
maybe they won't get elected to sheriff. Or
there you go. But, my heart really bleeds for these people. I can't imagine what it would be like to be in prison. One guy up in Montana has been there for over 30 years for a murder he didn't commit, and how do you know? It was proved to the satisfaction of a Montana judge a couple of years ago that he didn't do it. Well, because you live in their story enough, and you're able to check things out enough.
Okay.
That
like the Nicaraguan guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was released. And he went out to live in Billings. He was there for about a year and a half. He got himself a house. He got a job. He eventually had 5 guys working for him. He was living an exemplary life.
30 years?
At that time, he'd been in for 28.
Oh, my word.
So he becomes an upstanding citizen. The mayor of Billings is one of his best friends and biggest supporters. He's well known around town. He's like a politician walking through town. Well, the state appealed this ruling that released him, and they won the appeal in the Montana Supreme Court. A Supreme Court which, by the way, most of the members of which are appointed by the guy who was the prosecutor when this guy was convicted, who went on to become the governor a couple of times, etc.
Yeah.
So, implying nothing, but that was the situation. They appeal, they win the appeal, And our friend gets a notice that he has to be at the sheriff's office in an hour because he's going back to prison for the rest of his life right now. And he's there as we speak. Drives me bullshit. Drives me crazy to think about him and quite a few other people I know personally I've talked to for hours and hours.
Do you ever
We're in
feel,
that very situation.
I mean, do you write these people letters? I mean, do you go, hey, sorry? I mean, what? It seems so ephemeral. Just the word sorry, and I can't believe what you're going through. They are ephemeral words at that point. But do you?
You keep track, and you keep finding out what. There are a lot of Innocence Project type legal.
Right. Well, you work for a giant conglomeration. I mean, NBC and Universal, and everybody's, it's this huge conglomeration. I would think, I'm not putting the screws to NBC by any means. They've been very good to me over the years, but you would think if you know somebody's innocent like that cat you're talking about.
Well, they let me put the story on television, which is, that's the power that NBC has. And it's a significant amount of power, I think. I mean, it certainly makes people aware of these things. But it's just really hard. There are. You think of lawyers as people who are money-grubbing individuals who are trying to get as much money as they possibly can and represent, suing some company to make a lot of money. And trial lawyers are often portrayed as not necessarily the most upstanding people, but there are many, many attorneys around the country who are working to try to find justice for people who are accused of things who didn't do them, who work for peanuts or nothing. I mean, they will. There are hordes of attorneys who are making $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 a year.
It's amazing.
Who are representing these cases that they may never ever win.
I brought up the book Psychopath Test by John Ronson earlier, and one of the essays he has was there was a guy in England that faked being insane to avoid jail.
Uh-huh.
And then he won. He was sent to an insane asylum in England. Then all the evidence came out. Years passed. Turns out he's completely innocent. Now all you got to do is spring him from the mental hospital.
Now that's really hard.
He's going to die there because one day he wakes up happy because somebody's coming to see him. They write down, well, he's manic today.
Yep.
And then he gets angry and they say he's bipolar. And then John Ronson, the author, just kept visiting this guy over like months and months and months. And then it got to the point where John Ronson was going, maybe he is fucking crazy. Now I'm confused because he kept reading the files every day, and every day there was an update on this guy.
Yeah.
So getting out of a jail, it's
very hard.
It's a tough hustle. Damien Eccles was on this podcast. It was awfully, and I mean that awfully famous because of the West Memphis 3 trial. 18 years, 17 days on death row. And he walked into my hotel room. He'd been out for a couple weeks. And 18 years on death row. He walked into my hotel room. We shook hands. His lovely wife, Lori, was there. He walked and looked out the window of the St. Regis Hotel, and he went, wow, what a view. And I realized I had been in that hotel room for 8 days.
And you hadn't looked at it? Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, that's right.
First thing he did, looked out a window. And it was a view of like Lexington, just like car. It was nothing. It wasn't like the Statue of Liberty lit up red, white, and blue.
Right, sure.
Just a window these people are deprived of.
Yeah.
So that's got to be hard. I don't know if I have the mental stamina or the mettle that you have to put that behind you.
Yeah, that is not me, but these people, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you do the stories and you know the person, and then you go home and your wife says, how was work? And you go, kind of awful because I know the guy didn't do it and he's going to rot in jail for the rest of his life.
Right. And some of them confessed, of course, and that's the really tricky one because you ask somebody, well, why did you confess? And it's always the same story because they were in a little room and there was a certain technique that was used to try to wear them down, and eventually they would say anything they had to say to get out of that room, and always an escape hatch was offered. If you just sort of confess, maybe you were there or something, there was a little wedge to which you can say, okay, all right, will you let me go home to my mommy now? And of course they wouldn't, because that's the trick. But once the confession occurred, there are very few Supreme Courts anywhere that'll let somebody out of prison if they've already confessed, whether they did it or not.
Yeah, I would assume so. That's tough to.
Yeah. So we go back and we look at the tapes, if there are any of their confessions, of their interrogations, and you see where they were bogus from the start, and they were frightened, and they were led to say what they said, and they were almost dictated their confessions, and usually they're young people who weren't the brightest, and that's a fascinating part of this job. That's what sticks with me more than anything, that kind of stuff.
And we know in this country, and I'm not speaking for Keith, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm realizing as we go, you're a very important newsman, and as I wade into, no, I'm being serious, and as we wade into politics, you say can and will be used against you. I won't even ask red, blue state, libertarian, that's your business, and I don't want anybody to have an opinion of you other than the great work that you bring forth. And we know that in our country, it's societal. It's a money game. The courts and the people that are poor get put away at a much more alarming rate than the people that are wealthy.
Indeed, yeah.
And that seems to. I don't really see that ever changing. But what's strange about your show, in a good way, Dateline, Fridays, 8 o'clock, 7 Central, Keith.
That's when it's on.
At Dateline_Keith. You better tweet the hell out of Keith Morrison and make him happy, because he has a good Twitter follow. He's fun.
I should look that up now.
The people on Dateline, it's almost like an episode of Columbo. Everybody's like sort of wealthy. It's never that lower. Like,
you know what? This is, and that's a weakness. I gotta confess. I'll be a little self-criticism here. We pick stories where the characters are people you can identify with or would want to identify with. There are lots of lowlifes who get involved in these terrible scrapes, and sometimes they're complicated stories like the ones we like to do. But if they really are, forgive me, somewhat disgusting people, you tend not to do the story because people aren't going to want to watch it.
Your shows have like mayors, sheriffs, retired judges, man about town, a guy owned
Men of God, my favorite.
Men of God, guy who owned 8 restaurants, the most famous man in Cold Lake, Alberta. Everybody knew Joe in Cold Lake, Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
What are your favorite crime shows to watch, or do you stay away from the medium entirely because you're so sick and tired of it? You just like to watch reruns of like Sanford and Son.
I love those series on HBO and things. These the like Game of Thrones and stuff like that.
Yeah, period stuff.
And new, like the new Homeland stuff is good. Have you watched that lately?
I watched the first season of Homeland.
It dropped off a little. It's gotten pretty interesting.
I didn't have an affinity for the lead male. And I thought Claire Danes was great, and Mandy Patinkin I'll follow into the center of the sun.
Right.
But I really just something about the lead male.
Yeah.
I just didn't care.
I think he's gone back.
He's
to British
gone now.
television.
He was like executed or something in season 2. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Medieval Times, the restaurant?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me if I was that old, but
no. Sir.
Yes, I have.
I know how old you are. You're on the internet. There's a whole bunch of stories about you.
It's terrible.
The nude photos I thought were going to be alarming. I thought they're endearing, actually. I mean, the fact that you were holding bunnies, that was cute.
Yeah, that was good. Huh?
The nude photo. Keith, just look up Keith Morrison nude photos. You'll be thoroughly impressed.
Right.
And by the way, sir, well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Have you ever been to the restaurant Medieval Times?
I have, yes.
It's fun, right?
What do you got going here?
Nothing. I'm just going.
Yeah, it is kind of fun.
I'm like you. Yeah. Now I'm like you speaking to a politician. I'm trying to pull you off your speaking points here. So your crime shows, not really. You're more into like the procedural dramas, and the fun.
But I read a lot.
Mad Men is
I read a lot of crime novels.
Really?
Yeah. Whodunits. Agatha Christie is one of the great women of literature, in my view. Even though people wouldn't call it literature, possibly, but I do because I love it. She invented the genre, and it's even now the template for true crime reporting.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah. If a story is, the more it is like an Agatha Christie story, the more likely it is that it's going to be a success on our show.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. She's got like 50, 60 novels. She just never stopped.
Well,
now you get these guys like Patterson and
same deal. They just keep going and going.
But they have a staff. They're like Andy Warhol in the factory. They just get people up off the streets to write their books for wrong.
Yeah. You may be writing one. I don't know. Are you?
No. I can only write about myself because I'm a narcissist,
yes,
psychopath.
okay.
See that right there?
Yeah.
Have you done enough shows? I said that like Norm Macdonald. Have you done enough shows?
You did.
Yeah, Keith Morrison, where you yourself could get away with murder.
I think so.
Oh my God!
There's a technique. I won't say what it is.
John Sally, former basketball great, told me his whole family are homicide detectives, and they said the average murder, there's 27 mistakes. He said if you knock that number down to 10, you can walk.
Exactly.
Really?
I think he's got it.
John Sally was right?
I think so.
Spider, my man.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I always just thought if you're going to approach, you would wear different size shoes.
Oh, no, that's
like I would squeeze my feet.
No, they all
like,
do that. No.
What do you mean they all do
don't
that?
even think about doing that.
Well, I'm not going to think about murdering anybody.
It never works.
What do you mean it never works? They always match the tread of the tire. They match the tread of the shoe.
But if the shoe is a different size, I mean,
go on, tell me.
They always catch that. They always catch the fake burglary. They always catch, you name it. They catch most things. But there are some things they don't catch.
And you can't say them on air?
I wouldn't want to, no.
Oh.
I don't want to encourage any bad behavior.
No, okay. But you tell me off, Mike. That sounded creepy. Like I want to murder
you want to kill your wife or something?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? That's the only reason I'm alive is that beautiful redhead up there. What amazes me on the show is when people, it's always, in the movie, the Spike Lee movie with Denzel and Clive Owen. It was a great bank robbery movie. I forget, but the number one reason people rob banks, mortgage. The number two reason, mortgage. And they go on, and they just do it like 8 times until they beat a dead horse. But people murder a lot for the life insurance, but what amazes me on your show is that sometimes the life insurance is like $40,000.
I know.
It's like,
I know.
If you're gonna whack somebody, get $3 million. Get that check from Seinfeld.
You would think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Was it $3 million? Check from Seinfeld?
No, I'm just saying, get a good life insurance. But I appreciate.
No, you would. But they couldn't get the good life insurance because in many cases they just what insurance company would want to give them a huge insurance policy when they're making $15,000 a year,
If you weren't doing this
living in a
living,
trailer park.
Yeah, a lot of trailers. It's a tough hustle. If I had my life insurance done and I realized I'm worth much more dead than alive, that was a depressing day in my life, Keith. They came to my house, they drew my blood. I laid on my own couch with an EKG. It was very relaxing.
How much is your life insurance policy?
I'm not going to tell you on this. If you're not going to hold back, I'm going to hold back.
I'm not holding back.
What do you mean you're not going to hold?
I don't have a life insurance policy.
You wouldn't tell me a politician that was batshit crazy, like a person you went, how is this person ever get elected? He's an actual crazy person. You wouldn't even give me a name of somebody deceased.
No, I wouldn't.
All right.
Yeah.
Strom Thurmond. But listen.
Yeah.
If you weren't doing this for a living, you strike. This how I see Keith Morrison. If he never got into the news business, you strike me as a man of leisure who
leisure. Yeah, that's good.
Sailboat and a giant book, like a tome, like a giant book out on a nice. Sailboat.
Reading it or writing it? Reading it.
Just a guy
just
that
sitting
could
around
maybe
reading.
sail in a Marina Del Rey, sail, just relaxing. If you couldn't do what you're doing for a living now, what's like me? I would love to coach wrestling.
You look like a wrestler.
I did. I wrestled for a very long time.
Wow.
So if I could teach children wrestling, and especially the mental game like that, but
why don't you do that?
Well, it's a bit of a pay cut, Keith.
It's a bit of a what?
Pay cut.
Oh.
From show business.
Yeah, but you could still get the guys to, buy things on Amazon through your wrestling
But I don't see that movie and money. That all goes to my kids' college. But I appreciate you bringing up the Amazon.
You've said that one time too often. I'm not sure I believe you.
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's when I get handcuffed for lying to my listeners.
Right.
Which won't happen because it's true. What is your job? If you never were a newsman, when you were a little boy, you wanted to do what?
I wanted to be a preacher like my daddy.
Really?
Yeah, and then I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I wanted to be a politician, things like that. What about you? A wrestling coach. Yeah.
Wrestling coach. When I was like a preteen, I wanted to either be a Marine or a pro wrestler. But I wrestled at 105 pounds, and I have bunions, and I'm flat-footed. Probably not a good panic attacks. Not a good Marine. I'm not a guy you want in the foxhole.
Panic attacks.
Yeah. Treatable, easy. Anybody out there with panic disorder, please go see a doctor. It's a neurological glitch. It's just like having bronchitis. If you had asthma, they'd give you an inhaler.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't go, what's wrong with me? Well, I'm not a man.
See, here's what's really good about a show like yours and about shows like this is that you can say things like that now where, honestly, 20 years ago, just what you just said would be an extremely difficult thing to get out there to the wider world. And that's a very important message you just delivered. And you just did it like that.
What I like about
No
podcasting,
problem.
too, is it's appointment listening. People listening to this every Monday, they have the app on their phone, the More Stories app, which is free. And it's podcast. Even if you don't listen to this podcast, if you're just a first time through, if you're listening just because Keith is on, go download someone's podcast, because it's a point. You will never mind traffic ever again, because they're listening to you and I speak. You know, there's some guy in Boston right now stuck in the Ted Williams tunnel, and
he's going crazy.
No, he doesn't care because he's listening to us.
And we're scintillating and excited.
A Led Zeppelin song stops after 3 minutes. We've been talking over an hour, and it's
Have
fun.
we really?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, my God.
This is the new medium, Keith.
Yeah.
You bump like 3 minutes of commercials in the middle to cover your nut. This empty air in this garage costs a lot of money.
I still can't get past the Amazon thing.
What nomination was your father's? He was a preacher.
Well, I was up in Canada. You see, so they had this United Church of Canada, which was a
I don't know anything about
Protestant church.
I didn't know there was.
It's like the Presbyterian or something like that. You know.
But I didn't even know there was a United Church of Canada. That fast.
Oh, really?
You guys even socialized religion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you see your dad up on the pulpit there, giving a powerful sermon, and
he was great. He was like your granddad, the kindest man I ever met. Wonderful, wonderful man.
Of course, you aspired to do something like that.
Yeah, well, for a minute,
and then lawyer.
And then I realized there's no heaven. You know, we're not going anywhere.
It's show business too.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah,
you got to put on a hell. You got to be a front man. You can't be a bassist in the band. You got to be Jim Morrison to get that collection plate filled.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And you could tell. Lawyer is a strange job. Only job that you bring. You go home and you have to do homework.
Yeah, that'd be a terrible thing to do.
You go home, your wife's got dinner on the table, and you're like, hold on, I need 2 more hours to go through all these briefs.
I know. I got kicked out of law school, actually.
Go on.
No, it's true. It was in Saskatchewan, middle of the winter.
Moose Jaw?
You know, they have, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
That's my next guest.
Where there are 2 seasons, winter and July. And so it was winter, and I was kicked out of law school, and one of my neighbors was the editor of the local newspaper, and he needed somebody to drive him to work, and I had a car, and so, you know.
So I don't know what happened.
So I got into the media business.
Oh, you left that part out.
He approached me when I was plugging my car in because it was cold. It was wintertime.
Yeah.
And he, you know, offered me the job driving him to work because he couldn't drive.
A lot of comics get jobs that way. When I was coming up in stand-up comedy, I lived in New Jersey. I had a car at like 18 years old. The headliners all lived in Manhattan, no cars. So you would have a job opening for a headliner. You'd have to take them up to like Albany, New York. You'd get $100. You'd have to drop them off in Manhattan. You'd wind up losing money, tax tolls, all that business. But you did it enough times that the club would eventually go, when are you available to come up? So that was the game. You just kept driving into Manhattan.
Did it actually work? I guess it did.
Here I am, 29 years later, stand-up comedy.
Whoa.
You see my special. You know what? Your wife may enjoy, and yourself, my Netflix special is called Funny for a Girl. It was on Showtime, and now it's on Netflix. It's free. You want to go home and just have a few laughs, and you can text me if you liked it or not.
Okay.
And I have another one coming out in next year called Happy and a Lot.
Happy and a Lot? Now, why would you call it that?
Every day when
That's
I
a
pick
ridiculous
my son
name.
up, I'll tell you why, and then you're going to go, I shouldn't have said that.
Maybe not.
My son, I pick him up every day from preschool, right? And they give little preschool report cards every day, and it says mood, and every day the teacher writes happy, and it says lunch, and they check the box if they ate, and they write a lot. Every day, happy and a lot. That's my little guy upstairs. And if anything describes me, I'm a lot. I'm happy, and I'm happy a lot, but I'm also a lot. You know, I'm very alpha.
Yeah, kind of.
And I wish I wasn't to the point where I used to pray to strip me of some of this alphaness.
Yeah.
I used to write on my bedroom door in high school, "Don't talk."
But you do.
It's
endlessly
incapable of shutting up.
Yeah.
But it's been my sole source of income.
Thank God for that, because, you're
Corey,
keeping this whole thing going here.
Poor Corey. You pulled your weight, my friend. And we're going to talk, when we put down these mics, you're going to tell me all the secrets about politicians that were as nutty as I think. Please. Off mic.
Well, sure.
Not now, when we're done.
Fine, yeah, when we're done.
Phone numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact remains, Dateline, I don't think you realize it's a social phenomenon.
Well, I'm glad.
It's true.
I'm glad.
But I think you downplayed a little bit, and either you have a great poker face.
I'm terrified of hubris is what it is. I'm terrified. I knock on wood everywhere I go.
Of hubris?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because, the minute you decide a thing is working, it stops. So I do believe in magic.
Well, why don't you murder Mankiewicz?
I've thought about it frequently.
And then you'd be the go-to guy all the time for all the murders.
Yeah.
Keith Morrison.
I actually have a plan in motion now to murder Mankiewicz, but he doesn't know about it, so don't tell him.
Well, make sure he doesn't listen to this.
Well,
make sure the publicist for Dateline
doesn't tell him about
takes
this?
him out to lunch and let like a month blow by, because a lot of people are a little behind in the podcast.
Sure, I understand.
They listen to other things.
Yeah.
My man.
Yeah.
This has been I could talk to you for hours, but
I probably said a lot of things I shouldn't have said. Do you think I said
You
something?
said nothing you shouldn't have said. I've been fucking dragging shit out of you tooth and nail, and you're like, well, I can't say that.
No, I can't say that either.
You said Prime Minister Trudeau said, I'm so glad you asked me that, Keith. That was the big barn burner.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is we get the message out for Dateline. Which is
8 o'clock on Friday nights.
7 o'clock Central, and I'm not joking.
Sorry about that. But
okay.
I have a 2-hour Dateline. Occasionally we get these 2-hour blocks. I love the 2 hours.
Sometimes I don't like the 2 hours, Keith. I feel like you're stretching it out.
Wow, really?
But you're telling me otherwise. This is the one I should keep my eyes open for.
I think this is a better 2-hour than it would be a 1 hour.
Really?
Yes. Oh, that's good.
I wasn't trying to do you.
No, but it was good.
Oh.
Okay. So that's on the 19th
of December.
Of December, yeah.
December 19th,
2-hour
Dateline.
Yeah. 8 o'clock, 7 Central.
8 o'clock, 7 Central on Friday nights on NBC.
Yeah.
And this is yours. And this is
right.
Can you give us a little teaser?
Well, yes. It's a question of whether it's a question of whether a person committed suicide or was murdered, and it's a cheery topic, right?
Yeah.
But so there are really only 2 or 3 players in this situation.
You would seem like that would be a half-hour episode, not
exactly.
a 2-hour episode.
You would think it not a very complicated thing to figure out.
Right.
Everybody is absolutely blotto, tanked, drunk as skunks, and that adds to the complication. But then, so they have to figure out from whatever blood evidence, etc., is there, whether the guy did it himself or it was done to him. But that gets very interesting and complicated.
Yeah, don't give anything away, because I don't want the publicist to say, how could he say that?
Yeah.
Blood spatter, one of my favorite words. You would think it would be blood splatter.
Well, you could tell them. Why don't you write them a letter or something like that?
Spatter.
It is spatter, yeah.
But it makes so much sense if it was blood. It doesn't splatter. Like, I splattered that all over the place.
Yeah, I know.
You would never go, sorry about my spatter.
Well, maybe, yeah, it's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that, but
I know all the time.
What if I try to use that? Do you think that
I don't want you to change a damn thing, because you're perfect. You're perfect. You're
absolutely
perfect. The way I need you. The way I have.
You're trying to turn me into a narcissist. That's what's going on.
No, I'm a fan. Believe me, you wouldn't be here. I don't interview anybody I don't give a shit about. Look at the wall behind you.
I know.
Charlie Sheen, David Lee Roth. Look at all these narcissists.
Good God.
Wayne Kramer from the MC5, Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction, Mark Henry, the actual world's strongest man, Duff McKagan and Guns N' Roses, Anthony Jeselnik, great comic, Jim Jeffries,
I'm really
Eric Roberts, Mangello from True Blood. Look at this wall.
Is your dog as nice to all of them as she is to me?
She wanted to get away from Anthony Jeselnik at all costs.
Really?
Yeah, she feared. There's a photo. She's one of the only ones in the actual photo. I know you know the tells of people that are guilty. Here's the one I picked up on, and we're rounding third here.
All right,
we'll touch home. Anyone that has actually murdered their wife seems incapable of giving a single syllable answer. Like, I have not murdered my wife, right?
Right.
You know this as a fact.
I haven't seen your wife.
Well, all right, for all intents and purposes.
Okay, fine.
Okay, I got an alibi now. This is good. No. Ask me if I've murdered my wife.
Have you murdered your wife?
No. Now, make believe I have murdered my wife. Same question.
Did you murder your wife?
Absolutely not. I could never. They just.
That's
you've never noticed that?
Brilliant. It's brilliant. Actually, I have, yeah. They get very inventive and creative.
I couldn't even hurt a fly.
And it's mostly people with the kind of narcissistic personality who, they feel they're kind of brighter, the brightest person in the room.
They always do, right?
And, so they want to sort of put one over on you, and they beat a lie detector test so they can beat you, too, and it becomes that kind of a challenge. And that's when they get themselves into trouble. But as you say, too much explanation.
Not at all. There was one where the guy said, no, not at all.
Yeah.
It was a Long Island guy.
Yeah.
Did you murder your wife? No, not at all. And you're like, not even a little bit? No? If I gave you a week to interview anybody, we could just tail this person for a week. I know there's probably a dozen people in your mind that rattle around.
No, not a soul.
No.
Who's
somebody, like, if you had all access week and their guard came down, you just really get inside their head? Not a murderer, just
just to somebody. I don't think about those things.
It'd be great if you're like Henry Winkler, just some random celebrity.
Yeah.
Who's been on the podcast, by the way.
Really?
Oh, he's the best. There's not like Dalai Lama, not like world leaders.
Henry Winkler has been on this podcast?
Yes.
You talked to him? He sat here?
He's a wonderful, wonderful man.
Oh,
the table was set up this way when he was here.
God almighty, yeah.
It's good at doing visual
You're a lucky
cues
man.
For
you talk to all these
oral.
See, you've got the dream job. This is the ultimate thing. You get to talk to all these really interesting people, and for as long as you want.
By appointment, people I want to talk to as well. You get stuck talking to people that they send you to talk to.
Well, that's very true.
So there's nobody.
Now I feel bad about this.
No, there's not a person that comes to mind that you go.
Is there somebody breaking into your house?
Nah, it's just the door. My wife opened the closet door.
Right, says,
Don't worry about those mysterious noises, Keith. Everything's fine. What are you talking about? That's not blood. It's a pollock. I bought it.
Okay, fine.
That's a pollock. I bought a pollock and I hung it right there. I just took the canvas away.
Yeah.
There's not somebody you go. I'd like to sit down with this person for.
Oh, lots of people. Lots of people. I don't even want to say. But the Dalai Lama, for example.
Well, I said that earlier, and you scoffed.
Well, I was in a scoffing mode. You can't believe anything I say. You have to understand.
Apparently not. I love the Dalai Lama, like the world's most enlightened man, and then every once in a while you catch him in a photo, and he's wearing like a green visor.
Yeah. I'd love to talk to the Pope. I love this Pope.
He's Francis. He's a cool dude. He actually kissed the feet of prostitutes.
I know. That moves me to tears.
That's like the Book of Matthew style. That's very, very New Testament, mellow, calm Christ.
Absolutely.
I'm down with him too.
I like the calm Christ.
You're coming. Book of Matthew is like, let's all be cool. It's almost like Christ is Buddhist.
Yeah, kind of. And the Buddha would be great. Oh, wait, is he around anymore?
No.
Sure, no.
Well, does he ever go away? He's in every home in the west side of L.A.
There you go.
In every garden. Keith Morrison, the show is Dateline. It's Fridays, 8, 7 Central. Look, man, don't be a stranger. I mean, we're practically neighbors.
Yeah, we are, aren't we?
And this is just, I really, honestly, I could talk to you for 5 hours straight, but we both have lives we need to get back to.
Everybody lies all the time. But it's been great to talk to you, too.
What part do you think I lied about tonight at all? Just give me, seriously.
You said you could talk to me all night long.
All right. I embellished.
All right.
I said I could talk to you for probably 5 hours.
I haven't talked to thousands of murderers either.
Hundreds, certainly.
Hundreds, yeah.
Yeah. I could certainly talk to you for
I felt bad about the thousands the minute I said it, actually.
Yeah, you seemed a little overly sensitive about your number. You threw a dart at a number, and you were unhappy with where it landed.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think we got the point. You exaggerate to clarify.
And
when I say I could talk to you for 5 hours, I don't think that's an exaggeration. If we drove to Vegas and we both had
we'd talk the whole time.
We pulled over a lot. I could talk to you the entire time.
But you could talk to a pillow the entire time.
A lot of times I do. You know what's funny? I was doing quotes from the movie Platoon once downstairs here in the house. And my wife upstairs goes, "What?" And I go, I think it was Tom. I said, I'd like to hear about it, potheads.
Yeah.
And she goes, I don't know what that means. And I go, no, it's from the movie Platoon. And she goes, what? So she goes, you just walk around the house. This is when we were first together. You just say these things like when you're, did you need me to hear it? And I go, no, I just, and she really, like, it's the first time a human being sat across from me and said, so you, like, if I wasn't here, you would walk around and say movie quotes out loud.
Sure.
And I realized, oh my God, yes.
That's kind of true. Did you see the movie The Trip and The Trip to Italy? Those two movies that those guys did. You didn't see them?
The Trip?
Yeah. The hell are their names?
Well, fill me in on it.
This is just a trip a couple of guys make, and they're doing their imitations of James Bond and so on along the way, and quips and funny things, and just very funny talk, and that's the movie.
So it's like a documentary almost.
That's the movie.
Is it a documentary?
No, it's a movie.
Oh, just the guys on a trip.
Yeah, and they're pretending a few things just to make it like a story, but you'd be fabulous at that.
Keith Morrison, Jay Mohr. Trip for two.
There you go.
Let's do it. Buddy
Trip
comedy.
to Vegas. Yeah.
Me and you. Let's remake Cannonball Run. Me and you will be in a hearse.
Which one is in the back?
Possibly. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, I assure you. You said nothing.
Really, nothing I'll get in trouble for?
No. Look at Corey vociferously.
No, she's saying no too.
You really are like it's. I had Joe Buck on from Fox, the voice of the World Series and the Super Bowl,
okay.
And I tried to get him to do a home run call swearing.
Did he do it?
Like, holy shit, that fucking ball is. He goes, no.
Wow.
Because his bosses could hear. Like, same with you in politics and world leaders. They'll show you the door like that prick up in Toronto.
He's not a prick.
What was the name of the guy that fired you in Toronto? I want names. I want names.
Yeah.
Hope you're happy. Look at Keith now.
Yeah, right.
What are you doing? Much TV, much music or something up there? Keith, that's what he's doing now. Keith Morrison, thanks for coming on the podcast, brother.
Thank you.
Much love. Say something spooky on the way up.
Well, what is that Range Rover doing in the driveway? And who's behind the wheel?
Keith Morrison, ladies and gentlemen, put your name on it.
When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
Choose Shell V Power Premium Gasoline. It removes an average of 60% of performance-robbing gunk on intake valves left by low-quality premium gasolines, and it starts with your very first tank. Choose Shell V Power today, and let the excitement begin.
He took the junior wife out for a nice steak dinner, and then he took her home, and he killed her. And he not only killed her, but then he cut her up into little bits with a saw. He did this in his bathtub so it wouldn't make too much of a mess. And then he put her into a couple of Tupperware containers and put those into the back of an Escalade he had rented, and he drove it out into the Arizona desert, and he buried it under some stones, and went back into town and was preaching the next Sunday. So eventually, it took them a long time to catch this guy, but they eventually did, and they got the story out of him, and they convicted him, and he's in prison for life. So I asked him, I'm kind of interested in religion, and I asked him some questions based on his belief and, how he could still believe he was going to heaven after doing a thing like that. And he explained to me why that would be so, and said, but, the best part of it is she'll be there waiting for me, and we'll be together again. Wow. I said, you cut her into little bits. You think she's going to want to be with you again? Oh, yes, for sure. I love the things that people tell themselves more than anything.
And told you in a national audience, too.
Well, yes.
There's got to be times where you're sitting across from a guy, and the moment you walk into the room, you get piss shivers up your spine, and you're in the presence of evil, and there's no...
But not that often.
Or has that ever happened?
Yes, it has.
Where you go, whoa. Like, before you even sit down, you go, whoa, there's a vibe in this room, bro.
Yeah.
Really?
But only once or twice, really.
Really?
Yeah.
How many have you done?
How many
Datelines have you done where you sat down with these men that have murdered their wives that lit up a room?
Not always just their wives, The men don't light up rooms, the men victims, as
never
often.
Say that. They always say, no one had anything bad to say about him. And I say on stage, well, by my math, there's one lady.
Yeah.
And I'm rounding up.
Yeah,
one lady that had so many bad things to say about him. Words weren't getting the point across. She needed the woods and time to fully express herself. So how many times have you sat down with
thousands?
Thousands?
Yeah.
And does any of that rub off on you? Do you ever go home and put your head on your pillow and you can't sleep because you realize, you're a news anchor. You did things up in.
Yeah, well, right. That went on for a long time. These you can do almost anything on television, including get coffee and take out the garbage. And
but you covered like real. You weren't always saying, something was brewing at the Waffle House and it wasn't the coffee. You covered the Yom Kippur War, for crying out loud.
Yes, that's true. But I covered politics for a long time and talked to people with positions and authority and famous people. And they always, knew what they were going to say when they sat down, and they always had boundaries and barriers you couldn't go past. It was always a little kind of a dance you did with people. You never got to know what was going on inside, and that's what happens on this show. You sit down beside. I think I told you this before. You sit down in a room surrounded by lights and crews and producers sitting off to the side, and you talk to a stranger you just met. And that person is aware that this is going to go on television and be seen by millions of people. And you ask them questions more intimate and more personal and more private than a member of their own family would ask them after living with them their whole lives. And they'll answer. It's amazing. And they'll answer in a way that they often lie. Everybody lies all the time. But enough questions and answers, you sort of get to know the real person.
And your time with them, especially, people that have, I want to talk more about you talking to heads of state and such and covering wars, because that fascinates me as well. And coming from Saskatchewan, of all places.
Good God, you've done some research.
Well, it's a peripheral, I like to keep it light, and I don't want to let the facts get in the way of a good time here. Are you the most famous Saskatchewan?
No, God, no.
Who is?
No.
Who is?
Well, the thing I'm most proud of is that I went to the same elementary school as Gordie Howe.
Well, that's way out.
Yeah, and I played hockey on the hockey rink, the outdoor rink right beside the school where he started playing hockey is where I started playing.
So I'll put Gordie Howe way up.
Yeah.
He's most famous Saskatchewanian or Saskatchewan?
I don't know what the hell they call them. Saskatchewanian, I
Canadians.
suppose. That too, yes.
That as well.
Yes.
When you sit with people and your time with them is very limited, and I have a bunch, I do an entire, I would say about 15 minutes of stand-up about Dateline.
Good God.
Well, it's fascinating because you have all the workings of the perfect, not jokes, but like routine. It's, first of all, everyone in the audience has seen it. Secondly, you point out things. My wife actually wrote the entire run, and I just perform it. When you get murdered, people suddenly come out of the woodwork and say the nicest things about you. Yes. You could have been the biggest bitch, hell on wheels, awful man. But they say two things that you've heard probably 100 times. The first thing they always say is, she lit up a room.
Yes, they all lit up rooms. You're right.
It's amazing.
Yes.
Keep smiling right now. It is the precursor to getting murdered. Your number one line on your resume, if your husband's going to put a happy face where your throat used to be, it's you must be a room lighter upper.
Good. A happy face where your throat. I like that. I like that line. Yeah.
Ear to ear.
No, I'm just wondering if I could use. Is that your line?
Oh no, carte blanche for you, my friend. They always say she lit up a room.
Yeah.
And to which I call bullshit on because Dalai Lama lights up a room alive.
Yeah, true.
Cindy Crawford.
Yeah.
You see her, you go, wow, she really lights up a room alive.
Yep.
But all of a sudden I'm supposed to believe that Patty, who's like a 6 tops, I saw her wedding video. She's got a crooked tooth and crunchy bangs. I don't think she really lit up a room. I think you're kind of embellishing just to be on television.
Just a bit. Yeah.
And it goes back to your point, Keith Morrison. At Dateline_Keith. You're going to get a lot of tweets. You're going to like it.
Oh, well, good.
It's a passionate bunch.
Yeah.
That people will lie, and they'll say the strangest things. Even a man accused of murder, trial pending, and I think it goes back to the movie Requiem for a Dream, where she says, I just want to be on television. Like, people, just to be on television.
Yeah.
Even at the risk of incriminating themselves.
Well, there is a little of that, yeah. It's the oddest damn thing, actually. And occasionally, I mean, you know how it is, people lie to themselves more than to anybody else. So I remember at one time talking to a preacher who had decided during the course of his preaching career that a man should have more than one wife. Not that uncommon in some religions. It was uncommon in his, but anyway, he married a junior wife, and things were fine for a couple of years, and then he tired of her, and so he sent the senior wife and the kids off for a weekend in Santa Barbara, and maybe tonight, you never know.
You are, of course, the voice of Dateline Fridays at 8 o'clock, my wife and mine's favorite show, and people listening are big fans of yours. I got you to call into my sports talk radio show. You were nice enough to do that.
Well, what do you mean nice enough? It was a pleasure.
You're the best.
It was an honor.
And you are good on Twitter as well. It's at.
Oh yeah, it's at Keith underline. Wait a minute. Dateline underline Keith. That's
underscore.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Underscore.
Dateline at Dateline Keith. And when I asked you to be on my radio show, which is sports, you actually tweeted back, "What do I know of sports save murder?"
Well, it is a kind of a sport, don't you think?
It was just great. Murder. Well, in your business, it certainly seems to be a bit of a sport. People seem to strategize
Surprised to a surprising degree. It never fails to amaze me how much planning goes into these. You wouldn't think it's supposed to be a crime of passion, but no, often
What
not.
amazes me when people do it for the money, the life insurance, and it's something inconsequential.
The light just went out in front of your garage.
Security light. It's
Yes, well, now. All right.
Everything's going to be narrated. I'm going to get my throat slit from behind.
Could be.
I have a theory that when you meet Keith Morrison, and I've actually tweeted this, if you ever meet Keith Morrison and shake his hand, you're granted everlasting life. It would be far too bizarre.
You said that?
I tweeted it like maybe 2 years ago.
Wow.
Because if I shook your hand, it would be too bizarre for you to then be on Dateline saying Jay Mohr.
Right.
Yeah. Like you'd have to be excused from that particular one.
That's true.
And then I'd have the Mankiewicz guy doing it.
Well, he'd be a lot snarkier.
Josh Mankiewicz is more snark, and you're more sinister?
I don't know. I think I'm just warm and cuddly, mostly.
Well, you do make it genteel, and I have said you are the Vin Scully of murder.
You did?
Yeah. This is a huge get for me, Keith. You have no idea. I've jumped through...
I thought it was the other way around.
Well, then it's the Mutual Admiration Society. We're both doing well in the deportment department. But your show, Dateline, Fridays at 8, and I know everybody listening to this are huge fans of the show, and you tweet, and Dateline has their own Twitter handle, and they tweet back.
They do.
But I think people don't realize that this is sort of like a gig you've settled into because you were a new...
Last night, Cheryl Loggy made her status. Any moms out there know a good stroller for twins? Help! It got 10 likes and 8 comments. Geico also has a comment, Cheryl. While we don't know which stroller you should go with, we do know that in as little as 15 minutes, you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance just by switching to Geico. And with that money, you can buy the swankiest of rides for your tiny duo to cruise around in. Right on down to Potty Training Town. Hashtag twins. Hashtag savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
With the holidays almost here, you don't have time to go to the post office. I keep telling you guys, the traffic, the parking, old ladies mailing mini fridges to their nieces. Look, use Stamps.com instead and don't go to the post office. With Stamps.com, you can avoid all the hassles of going to the post office during the busy holiday season. And everything you would do at the post office, you can do right from your desk. Buy and print official U.S. postage using your own computer and printer. Print postage for any letter or package the instant you need it. Then the mailman picks it up. It's so easy. It's so convenient. And that's why I use Stamps.com. You should use it too. Right now, get this special offer when you use my last name, Mohr. No risk trial plus $110 bonus offer. And that includes a digital scale and up to $55 free postage. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Mohr. That's Stamps.com. Enter MOHR.
Put your name on it. Just put your name on it. That's all I say. Be a man or a woman. Put your name on it.
Well, I'd like to hear about it, potheads.
How the fuck you gonna know how to be great if you don't study greatness? Look at the game tape.
Donuts. If you want a battle, it's either that you will or you won't.
You know, you're not a bad-looking man, Mr. Gals.
But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
There's something wrong with us. Something very, very wrong with us.
Hey, man.
War Stories podcast number, I don't know what number we're in, mid 250s or so, Keith Morrison.
No kidding.
No kidding at all.
Well, and you're still alive.
Still alive.
Nobody's killed you yet.
No, but
somebody could.
Go on.